Story number 1. Here Comes the Bride. Submitted to r/shortscarystories by Scattle92. But it's my wedding day, grumbled Carla as she stood on the already confetti-littered steps of the hotel. I know, it's okay, I will go and find a broom, I replied, ever the diligent maid of honor. Carla nodded and walked inside. As I was sweeping the confetti, I got a call from the hairdresser. It was bad news. But it's my wedding day, whined the bride when I broke the news that her hairdresser was running late. I know. It's okay, we still have time. You're going to look beautiful, I reassured her. Carla had been a bridesmaid 6 times. When she met Tom, she was picking out wedding colors after the first date. They seemed to love each other, though not as much as Carla loved the idea of finally being a bride. At last, the hairdresser arrived. We all finished getting ready, and we were really enjoying the day. Carla and I went to do one final walk around before the guests arrived. That's when she saw it. A small hairline crack in the frosting of her $3,000 wedding cake. She stamped her feet this time, but it's my wedding day. I know. It's okay, we can just turn the cake around. And when you cut the cake, make sure your Aunt Veronica gets that slice. You hate her anyway and she won't be posting any pictures, I reasoned. Carla almost smiled as she started straightening the ribbons on one of the chairs. The ceremony was beautiful. Everything was. It was Carla's wedding day, after all. Everything was planned to the last detail. At the reception, Carla's Aunt Veronica grabbed me and loudly stated, "Darling, your parents told me the happy news. Congratulations." Everyone was looking, but I couldn't hide my smile. I was so happy to finally be expecting. A few other people mumbled their congratulations as I rested my hand on my tiny little bump. Carla watched the whole scene unfold, with the angriest expression I have ever seen. She walked out of the room, seething silently. I followed her, desperately embarrassed to have stolen even one clap of the thunder on her special day. When I found her in the kitchen of the hotel, crying, she was holding a gigantic knife. She sprang at me. The knife puncturing the custom-made satin maid of honor dress. And me. The next frenzied stabs came along with the words, "But it's my wedding day." Each word punctuated by a sharp blow to my body. As I lay on the polished floor of the hotel kitchen, blood pooling around me, I clutched my tiny bump. The blushing bride wiped my blood from her face and danced away, her white dress spattered crimson. Story number 2. Between the first and second floor. Submitted to r/shortscarystories by Daking Treks. Yeah, the owner just up and vanished. Couldn't tell you why. Here. The man took the keys and welcomed his new home. After the old owner disappeared, leaving his home and belongings behind in ruins, the colonial property became a bargain sale on the market. The man entered the renovated 2-story home and began unpacking his things. A month later. Save us. Hello? Who's there? The man stops on his stairs and looks around. Save us. The man looks down at the steps, heading prone to listen closer. Save us. His heart stops, and he jolts up. He hears a child's voice from below the steps. I'll get you out, just wait 1 second. He runs upstairs to his room to find his tools. Please, he hears more from below his feet. What the? But, how's that? Sure enough, he hears a child begging from beneath his bedroom floor despite the lack of any space beneath it. He finds his hammer. Stand back. He shouts, driving the hammer into the floorboards. Prying the hammer from the hole, he drops to the floor and looks through it. He can't see anything, only dark. He shines a flashlight into the hole. He shrieks and falls back, an eye peeking through the hole. It disappears, a mouth moving to replace it. Get us out of here, sir, it's so dark. Find the exit. In search of a trapdoor, his hammer leaves 20 more holes behind. Each one has a mouth under it. Help us. Help us escape. Please. He hits something solid and pries apart the floorboards, a metal door beneath. He opens it and shines the flashlight down, but the light barely penetrates the darkness. He gets to his knees and reaches down into the hole. Grab on. I'll pull you kids out of there. He feels a hand, then 2, then 10. Before he can speak, he's yanked hard onto the floor, his face pressed against it. He struggles to pull his arm out, his right eye over a hole. Another mouth appears under the hole, pink lips smiling. It giggles, then licks his eye. His arm starts throbbing in pain. The man rips his arm away from the hole and gets up, bite marks on his skin. What's wrong with you? What are you trying to do? Cacophonous giggles erupt from the holes. The man's seen enough. He starts off, leaving to find someone else to help. An arm breaks through the floor, grabbing his ankle. He shakes it loose and starts running. Dozens more arms grab after him as he barrels downstairs. He slips through and reaches the door. A glance behind reveals armless, empty holes. The ceiling starts splitting, the giggling returning as eyes and mouths appear in the cracks. He flees out the door and never comes back. A month later. So yeah, another disappeared, just like the prior owner. Here you go, ma'am. She took the keys and welcomed her new home. Story number 3. Mommy Dearest. Submitted to our /shortscarystories by Deontistic. She sat on her daughter's bed and pulled the covers up high. Shall I tell you a story, my darling? No, Mommy. You don't have to, but will you sit with me until I go to sleep? Of course, I'll stay as long as you like. You don't have to worry about a thing. She leaned down and tenderly kissed her daughter's brow. Oh my, you feel cold. Are you cold, my darling? No ma'am, I'm fine. She straightened the quilt from side to side, the quilt her grandmother had made and given to her on her wedding day so many years ago. She could still see the faint crimson stains. Are you sure? Yes ma'am. Okay then. She rested her hand upon her daughter's chest. I don't have a thing in the world to do tomorrow. I thought we'd spend the day together, just you and me. How would that be? Wonderful. The girl's eyes lit up. That would be so nice, just you and me. Is there anywhere particular you'd like to go, anything particular you'd like to do? Yes, please. I'd like to go to the glade down by the pond where all the dogwoods are. We can pick flowers. Yes, we can pick all you like. You don't think Daddy will mind, do you? Your father? I don't want to make him angry, you know how he gets when he's angry. Just then, she heard her husband's footfalls coming up the stairs. The joy drained from her countenance, and she turned to face the door as he opened it. It's late, Marge, he said. I think I'm gonna turn in. She nodded curtly. What about you? You coming? In a bit. You go on without me. He gazed forlornly across the room, started to leave, but said, It's been 6 months. She looked away so he wouldn't see her tears, should there be any. I'm worried. I don't think it's good for you to come up here and sit so much, and Doc agrees with me. It's not healthy. Doc is entitled to his opinion, she retorted, then turned to face him, and so are you. But I'm entitled to my opinion, too. Marge, I'll be down in a minute, James. You go on. He started to protest, but in the end, decided against it and left her be. She returned her attention to her daughter, and the smile returned to her face. He did it, the daughter said. The detective said it was an accident, but it wasn't. He was angry, and he did it on purpose. I know, my darling. Don't make him angry, he's not nice when he's angry. I know. She retrieved the knife from the layers of her gown, let its razor-sharp edge catch the dim light. But after tonight, we won't be bothered with that ever again. Really, Mommy? She nodded. Oh Mommy. She rose and hugged her mother around the neck. You're the best Mommy ever. Story number 4. Brick houses. Submitted to our /shortscarystories by A Hawaiian Shirt. When the lumberjack moved to the small, wooded town of Moorer, he purchased an empty plot in the middle of a long stretch of beautiful mason houses. The outskirts of our town were heavily overgrown with lush trees and vegetation, effectively enclosing the entire community in a beautiful, natural embrace. Every backyard was filled with trees of all sizes, and the growth would reach as far as you could see. When he got out of his vehicle the first time, he looked perplexed, and it didn't take long for him to flag one of us down. Why do you all have brick houses? He asked. We told him our ancestors had worshipped the trees long ago, and it was considered a sin to harm the forest for such selfish reasons. We told him they had taken from the earth instead, harvesting clay deposits and fertilizing in their place so the trees could thrive around them. Huh. How about that? Was all he said, and proceeded to set up a tent on the land he bought. It wasn't until the next day, when he went to the diner for breakfast, he had shared his plans. He told us he was a retired logger, and he purchased the land to build a cabin from the trees on his lot. Once finished, the cabin would serve as his summer home. We promptly looked at each other in disbelief, then told him he was making a grave mistake. The trees are not to be harmed, we told him the trees wouldn't like that. He promptly stated that it was his land, and he would do with it as he pleased. We warned him as he left, but he did not listen, and it was that night when he fell the first tree. In silence, we watch him drag the log from the woods, wipe his brow, and turn in for the night. In the morning, the lumberjack showed up at the sheriff's station. His clothes were torn and dirty, his face disheveled and wild-eyed. He spouted off about being attacked in the middle of the night, that tree people had drug him from his tent and into the woods at night. He said he was terrorized by them and tied to the stump of the fallen tree, fastened to it with vine and his face glued to the stump with sap. He was stuck there until almost dawn when he managed to free himself. The sheriff dismissed him, and we laughed off his crazy talk, but in the end, he relinquished his property. He was packed up and gone just as fast as he arrived. We were glad the costumes made of loose bark and sticks had worked. We hung them back in the closets, where they would sit until the next new arrival. After all, we are getting too old and tired for the old way. It's much easier than grinding their bones into mortar. Story number 5. Mission to Mars. Submitted to r/shortscarystories by Suck My Writer's Block. Voice log number 221. We're a day out from landing. The excitement in the cabin is palpable. After so much training, after so much time, we'll be the first people to step on Mars. Brolin and Garcia are attempting to stay calm, but I can see how excited they are. Voice log number 222. We have landed. It was rocky, but we managed to land without any significant damages. That first step onto land. There's nothing else like it. Most of what happened today can be heard in the recording I sent you. Voice log number 223. Hunter, Brolin, and Garcia have been taking samples all day. I recorded footage of them and attempted to send it to you, but the connection is down. Garcia says she'll fix it tomorrow. Voice log number 224. Hunter and Brolin explored a cave close by today. They found some equipment there, some lights and a scanner. I tell them that Garcia must have already been there. It's too late in the day to argue over it, and Garcia's asleep. The comms seem to be down. I'll ask Garcia to look at it tomorrow. Voice log number 227. Everything seems so familiar. We only arrived yesterday, but it feels a lot longer. Garcia is asleep, but I'll ask her about fixing communications once she wakes up since we've lost connection to you. Hunter explored a bit further away from a ship and found the most astonishing thing. Alien life. A small, green, slug-like creature. It burrowed into the ground before he could capture it. We're exploring that area tomorrow to try to find it. Voice log number 228. Garcia is dead. Brolin checked her vitals, and she's dead. We don't know how. We've only been here for a day, or two. Maybe a little more. I can't seem to tell. We are studying an alien creature, some slug-looking thing that Hunter found near the ship after it bit him on the hand. It's not looking good for him, his lower arm has turned purple. If it's not better tomorrow, we may have to amputate. Voice log number 229. We woke up to find Hunter dead. There aren't any marks on his body apart from a circular scar on his hand. Garcia is also dead. She had the same scar on her waist. Brolin and I don't know what to do. These bloated green creatures were biting into the engines. They've chewed through the comms also. One bit Brolin when he went to grab it. He's sleeping right now, but the scar he has matches the one Garcia and Hunter have. We need to get out of here while we still can. Voice log number 230. The other three are still asleep. How they can sleep on such an exciting day is beyond me. I tried to send you pictures I took earlier, but the connection is down. I'll ask Garcia to fix it when she wakes. Story number 6. The only vanilla sponge cake recipe you'll ever need. Submitted to r/shortscarystories by Beretta Vo. Step 1. Sift 1 3/4 cups of general purpose flour, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 1 teaspoon baking powder, and a pinch of salt into a large mixing bowl. That step is easy, because my hands are already shaky. The shakiness helps the flour drift down in a splendid little shower of white specks. My hands won't stop shaking. Step 2. Crack 3 eggs, separate the yolk and whites. I try to crack them as loudly as I could to muffle out his shouting from the living room. I imagine my face, cracking in all sorts of ways, like the eggshell. He's asking what's taking so long, he's hungry, tired. I try to answer, but my voice cracks like the eggs. Step 3. Beat the yolk into a fine, smooth mixture. Daniel would be great at this. He's good at beating many things, yolk included. Step 4. Add 1 teaspoon vanilla extract and the flour mixture to the yolks. Stir until smooth. It smells sweet, like the hair wash I used to use. Use to. Step 5. Add 1 teaspoon lemon juice and 5 tablespoons sugar to the whites and slowly whisk it all in. Whisk until it holds a stiff peak. The foam rises from the bowl. I wondered if it's different from the foam floating in his beer. I reach a finger in to touch it, reminds me of his shaving foam, back when he still was just a man. Step 6. Gently fold the meringue into the yolk mixture with a spatula. Do not stir. My hands are still shaking. The shouting won't stop. Do not stir. Step 7. Pour the mixture into a 6 by 12 inch greased baking tin. Bake at 180 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. Leave in oven for 10 minutes, then serve. I carefully lift the cake out of the oven when the lights blink at me. It wobbles a little as I cut it into dainty slices. Cake's ready. I call to him. As soon as the fork leaves his mouth, he drops to the floor, seizing, gasping. Blood welled up in his gums and his nostrils. He tries to speak through bruised purple lips. Rest of the cake lies untouched. Did I say vanilla? Oh, sorry, I meant arsenic. Story number 7. Steel and Flesh. Submitted to our /short scary stories by Del Rey Coles. We were on our knees, lined up perfectly for the freaks. I was drenched in sweat, and the man next to me started crying while we heard something marching our direction. His sobbing made me want to cry, but there's nothing I can do. The marching transformed into thunderous pounding on the floor as I looked up to see this half-man half-scorpion thing run circles around us. Some type of thick grease drips out of his pores while his 8 legs of steel drip with this black sludge. He stares at us blankly, then digs around in his chest to pull out some type of scanner. We're gonna fucking die, man. I know it. We're so fucked that I can't believe it. What can we do? There's got to be something, right? The man next to me whispers loudly in my ear. I don't know if. Male, 35 years, unfit, parts usable, sent to recycling. The thing says to a man a few feet away. He offers no resistance as this steel-clad gorilla grabs him by the neck and drags him into darkness. Recycling? God, just let them kill me. The thing moves closer to us to scan the man next to me. He looks him up and down and then snarls in disgust. It starts to drip with more sludge and whatever heinous fluid is coming out of his skin. Diseased. Unfit for use. It screeched while one of his legs rose to crash through his head. It was a sharp pop and a wet crunch all mixed into one terrible noise that violated my ears. I'd rather fucking die at this point. I don't want to be recycled or whatever the fuck that means. Just fucking kill me. The thing scans me next, and I'm doing everything I can to keep from vomiting. He goes back to his blankless expression and then, he starts smiling. Male, 29 years, healthy, fit for battle. It tells me with a hint of glee. Another armored goon comes out of darkness to approach me. He raised his fist at. Waking up now, and my skin is on fire. What the hell happened? I can't see anything, but I know my skin will not stop fucking burning. Jesus, what the fuck happened to me? Wake up Soldier 6888. It is time to evaluate your augmentation. I believe the thing from earlier says to me. The lights switch on, and all I can think about is killing myself. All of my skin is gone. Gone, it's fucking gone. Steel covers every inch of my body, and all I can feel is fire all around me. The burning spreads to my face, and look up to see it replaced with this metallic black mask. This can't be true. Someone will save us, right? 6888, we have identified that the transformation has been a success. You will be taken to your assignment in a moment. It barks out to me. Save me, please. Fucking save me. Story number 8. The Well. Submitted to our /short scary stories by Deontistic. Shanna and David were brother and sister, and they lived with their father in the country. She was 10 to his 9, and they were best of friends. Since their mother had died some years ago, they'd all grown close and were very happy, but then she came. Trisha had come once she'd married their father, and had immediately begun inserting herself into their customs and rituals. She was ruining everything. Shanna and David didn't like that at all. Still, their little house was nestled up to a forest, and in the forest, there were remains of several old log cabins from way back in olden times. It was a marvelous place to play, and they went there often, especially since she came. Several years before, they'd found a dry well set apart and hidden from where the dilapidated cabins were. It was off the beaten path and surrounded by undergrowth so thick one would almost have to know it was there to find it. They'd rigged a pulley and rope system to allow themselves in and out of the well, and it had been their favorite hideout ever since. On a particular Saturday afternoon, they chose to visit the well. "Did Father seem bothered to you?" Shanna asked as they walked along through the woods. "No, not really," David replied, moving his little box from beneath one arm to the other, "but you know how he is. He tries to hide it." "True, that's true." They walked a little farther. "Did you tell him where we were going?" David shook his head. "I just told him we were taking a walk in the woods, said we'd be back before supper." "What are we having, did he say?" David shook his head. "I'm sure it'll be good, though." "Yeah, as long as he's the one cooking." They both giggled, then Shanna shushed him. They were approaching the well, and it was their custom to do so quietly. Once they'd made it through the undergrowth, David set his box on the rock wall surrounding the well, and then the both of them peered into the hole, allowing their eyes time to adjust to the shadowy darkness. Once they had, they looked at each other and smiled. "I forget," Shanna whispered. "What was in the box yesterday?" "Tarantulas, 2 tarantulas." "And today?" "A rattlesnake." "Ooh, that should be fun." Not that she really cared, but she'd whispered loudly enough to awaken their captive. Trisha had willingly gone into the woods with the children back on Wednesday, and she'd been surprisingly easy to convince to go down the well. By now, she was getting very thirsty. "Children. Please." Trisha begged weakly. "Please, get me out, I need water." "Give her the snake," Shanna said. David opened the box and dumped the snake down the well, and then they waited. They saw the snake strike several times, and then heard the scream rising up through the shaft and pouring harmlessly into the forest sky. Story number 9. My dear Katherine, I love you. Submitted to our /short scary stories by Arxon the writer. I saw my own death. I jumped from the 7th floor right through the window of the small apartment I rented with my girlfriend. Oh shit, my girlfriend. My baby. Katherine. That's all my mind could think of. Her night shift at the 24/7 diner was going to end soon, and she'd just come home to that. Her boyfriend's lifeless, mangled body laying on the street. And even worse, she'd be in denial cause I fell face first, so I was unrecognizable. It was a gruesome view. She didn't deserve that. Not the kindest girl in the world. She was my world, so I couldn't let her go through that. I had to stop it. Then I woke up. It was such a realistic, almost lucid-looking dream. I was relieved. But then, at that moment, I got the call. The fucking call. My Katherine, my sweet angel. It was a robbery gone wrong. She was shot. I couldn't believe it at first, so I kept calling her on my way to the hospital. Although they told she passed. I was hopeful she didn't. But I was called to recognize the body. Make sure it was Katherine. I really wanted her to be the other girl who was also working that night. But no. It was her. It was my Katherine. Her beautiful face was so easy to spot. No matter where we were, she stood out. She was a fucking sun. Shining so brightly. Keeping me going. But the light was gone. It felt like night was gonna be there forever. No more mornings. No more sunny days. No more smiles. No more talking. That beautiful face and body were never gonna move again. Make noises again. Nothing. Soon Katherine in my life would become as if she never existed. Fuck no. That's when it clicked. It wasn't a dream. It isn't a dream. I'm still here standing next to my own dead body because my life was taken when my fantastic girlfriend died. This is the present. Reality. I just kept forgetting. I don't even know why. I went back home and waited. That week she was gonna work the night shifts. So I stayed awake. And waited. And waited. But she never opened the damn door. Again, babe? I've told you not to stay up for me. You gotta sleep too. Come on. After scolding me for not going to sleep every time she got the night shifts, she'd jump on me, kiss me and make love. It was amazing. But that didn't happen either. None of it. She was gone. So, I opened the window and jumped to my death. Second death because I wasn't alive anymore. She was my life. I died with her. So, I killed myself. I saw my own death. I jumped from the 7th floor right through the window of the small apartment I rented with my girlfriend. Oh shit, my girlfriend. My baby. Katherine. Story number 10. Eye of the Beholder. Submitted to r/short scary stories by Beretta Vo. She frowns at her reflection in the mirror as she adjusts the glasses. I watch her boyfriend pick out another pair for her. They're young, giggly, sharing a coquettish glance as he swaps out a pair of aviators for her. I hover in the back, holding my clipboard of optician secrets. Am I pretty? I think beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I reply. You should stick to contacts, babe. Her boyfriend chimes in. What did he say his name was? Isaiah? Ibrahim? Ian? I gesture to the sink by the exam table and offer her contact lenses from my cornucopia of prescriptions. Usually, first-time contact lens wearers need my supervision, but I haven't slept a wink during the night, and hopefully, the girl knows what she's doing. She fumbles with the lens a little, one finger on her eyelid and straining to stare into the mirror. Other finger pushes the lens into her eye. The lens slips off her finger, and she reels back, blinking the tears away. Let me help. Something boyfriend offers. He repeats a gentler motion, setting the lens in her right eye. He's much more successful, by a landslide. I watch the girl's brows furrow in confusion. It's not in there. She finally says. I don't feel anything. She sits by the mirror to sort it out, and I remain a spectator. But when she turns around with reddened eyes, vessels crawling over the opaque white sclera, her boyfriend moves in to help before I can. He reaches for her eyeball again, eyelids still pried open with one hand. I watch the tip of his nails disappear into her pupil, then a section of his finger, then his entire index, the right eye pupil expanding, vacuuming an arm after hand. She screams as her boyfriend is twisting into the cavity of her eye, pulled into the vitreous. If his flesh wasn't being compressed into the size of a spaghetti, this whole image could be rather humorous. Isaac. She screams, get away. Isaac. How appropriate. I think morbidly. His flesh folds in upon itself, bones and sinew suctioned by unnatural strength into an opening mere millimeters wide. The girl flails, her face caving in on itself from the pressure. The loud snapping of bones fade into the gradual grinding of debris, whatever is left of Isaac being pressured into a fine paste. The eye devours him, then its neighboring eye. Whatever force at work lashes out, squishing the girl into the size of a pine cone, then an eraser, then smaller than the entrance into her eyeball. I pick up the single I left on the floor and place it in a jar with the others. I suppose these body parts are always the last to die, they dilate. I'm too lazy to label each victim at this point. My only complaint is that those were my expensive contacts, made specifically for astigmatism. Now I'll never get them back. Story number 11. World's Best Healthcare. Submitted to r/short scary stories by the real Kurumi. Jacob Ellis was in trouble. I only have 495 words left, so I'll fast forward. The appendectomy was a success. He would be discharged as soon as he settled the $378,000 bill with the hospital. Insurance paid $10,000, the lifetime out-of-network maximum. I don't have that kind of money. $378,000 was more than his life savings. In these unprecedented times, Dr. Jorgensen said, we've had to adapt. Tomorrow, you'll return to your job, and continue living paycheck to paycheck. That's no help to us, so that's where your daughter steps in. But she's still in college. We know. Biology major. Getting $17 an hour as a lab assistant after graduating will barely pay rent. But there is another more lucrative career she can take up. If she doesn't already have the skills, we will train her. Ellis wasn't getting it. A girl with her looks and youth should easily clear $150K a year. You'd be paid in full within 3 years. Even with my referral discount. What? You son of a bitch. Ellis tried to raise a fist, but could not move. Yes. You're on a paralytic. You can speak and breathe, but not much else. I won't let you do this. The doctor smiled. It's not your decision. Your insurer has already signed off on it. A nurse stepped in. Doctor? The insurer and a client are holding. Hang on. He stepped outside to take the call. In less than a minute, he returned. Good news. As your kidneys are in good shape, we have a buyer in Shenzhen. You're taking my kidney? Both, actually. He prefers having a spare, and will pay a premium. It's really a win-win. How can I live without kidneys? Dialysis centers are everywhere now. Anyway, this will shorten your daughter's obligation by about 14 months. I know I'd be happy. Ellis didn't feel happy. Also, this brings another option on the table. Nurse. Can you get the Akeley project on the line? The nurse motioned the doctor outside. Mr. Ellis couldn't hear them. He felt like he was drowning. Excellent. The doctor strode back in, jovial. Long story short, your daughter can go back to college. What are you taking now? From your point of view, nothing. You're going along for the ride. Really, people will envy you. You might live for centuries. Think of it as ride sharing. What are you talking about? A cool sensation was traveling up his veins from the IV. They prefer their brains unstressed, so we'll need to put you under now. Count backwards from 10. 10, 9, no? Okay. Dr. Jorgensen smiled. Technically, he could have left the appendix in, but without the procedure, there would have been no deal. The director early on had admonished don't ask about the Akeley people, so he didn't. It still seemed like a good outcome for everyone. 5 weeks left in the quarter, and he'd already made his numbers. Story number 12. iSomnia. Submitted to r/short scary stories by Beretta Vo. Cassandra tapped her crimson nails against the plush velvet of her armchair impatiently. From my position, I could steal glances at her opulent face. Sharp perfume wafted over to me as I plug in the synods, synaptic nodes, as my boss says. How long does it usually take? She called over to me. I decided to make myself look busy, so I fiddled with the Cephalon headset. The simulation should be up in about 3 minutes. She decided it was sufficient, and sank deeper into the comfort of her chair. Here at iSomnia, we only provide the finest simulation experiences to the wealthy of the Elysian fields. Most visit out of curiosity, the sensation of clean air in their lungs, petting long extinct animals, a night with that pretty young actress, what's her name again? Ruth Leslie? I gently pulled the Cephalon headset over Cassandra's face, careful not to pull a single strand hair out of her expensive braid. Somatosensory gloves automatically fit onto her fingers. Synods lit up, feeding the simulation into her little world. The room darkens theatrically. Enjoy your time, I said, but her mind's already pulled into her customized fantasy. They are all born so lavished, so affluent, that sickness becomes a novelty. To want or need is an unfamiliar, inhuman emotion that the likes of Cassandra rarely entertain. Eventually, simulations of a simple forest walk or bungee jump can no longer satisfy that itch. A mind that is lax and obese from wealth-craved violence. I glanced back at the screen. Cassandra was using all 10 of her glistening nails to dig deep into the skull of the poor man. A wet squish and pop accompanied his hoarse screams. The sensory gloves applied pressure. She grinned as she looked down at the imaginary pixels of blood dripping off her fingers. A maniacal cackle broke from her perfume-soaked throat as she stomped down hard with her heels. Stiletto tips sank all the way into his torso, his contorted, squirming body. The Cephalon headset filled her nostrils with heavy taste of copper. She shoved her hands in him gleefully and began shuffling around his entrails like a kid in a sandbox. She pulled off the headset with a huff when the man stopped gurgling. How was it? I offered her my practiced smile. Realistic enough. Cassandra replied, still out of breath, but too short. Can we run a longer one next session? Anything for you, ma'am. I sighed as the doors closed behind her. Our simulations are realistic, everything from the physics to the sound effects are designed for maximum immersion. Which requires real-world data. Real-world footage. Real-world victims. There's plenty outside Elysian fields, all the poor scurrying husks like hungry rats. I just have to find one that lasted longer than the last. Their death will make a fine piece of temporary entertainment. Story number 13. Friday 13th. Submitted to r/short scary stories by Minimum Ad 2034. In my small, incredibly superstitious town, this date holds enormous weight. Everyone has their own ways of combating the misfortune that comes with the day. The main idea is to outweigh the bad with good. The Melvins hand out homemade chocolate, the Raphaels always host an outdoor barbecue, everybody welcome gathering. If it rains, they have a big tent they put up. The Tremaines go door to door and say a prayer and a blessing for those who want it. Cough everyone, cough once cough, it cough cough. It really is a great way to unite the community. This year, however, I have decided to test out a theory. If I stay in my room that I have modified for optimal safety with pillows galore, food, water, pee bucket, and computer, The capability of the curse of Friday the 13th should be limited to only small mishaps. Okay. So, here is what I've learned. Do not hide from Friday the 13th. Everything was going great until midway through the day when I accidentally kicked over the half-full pee bucket. It spilled onto the electric socket powering my computer and started a fire. The water I had left at that point wasn't enough to stop it, so I threw a blanket over it, and surprise, the blanket caught fire, making it spread faster. I decided to bail and fell over several times because of the pillows. On my last fall, my left foot landed in the fire, burning me severely. My father rushed in, slamming my bedroom door open right in my face. He dragged me out of the house, saving my life. I got surrounded by neighbors and paramedics trying to get me into an ambulance. But before I dared do anything else, I fished out a candy bar from my pocket, giving it to the closest neighborhood kid.